When I finally snapped out of the daydream, I went to go see my daughter. When I arrived and parked my car, I looked around at the bags full of my things. I started to ask God, why do I always end up in this type of situation? What am I not seeing or getting? I inclined my seat so I could go into deep thought about the questions that I was asking. After staring long enough and noticing the bags in my peripheral, I went back into my daydream. At the end of February, I was discharged from the center. My left eye had finally healed after I mastered holding it closed, but sunlight hadn't been a part of my reality in months. So when I was pushed outside in my wheelchair, my eyes could not handle the sunlight. Maybe because my body was still at a weakened stage is what played a part in that also. I arrived back at the nest, or you can call it my mom's house, with a wheelchair, a walker, a bench for the tub, and whatever clothes were bought or given to me when I was in rehab. And also all my medicine. I had clothes before my accident, but now that most of that memory is gone, I had no idea where they were. Maybe they were in bags and they were in the trunk of the car I was driving when I got in the car wreck. All I or anybody could do was speculate. I wasn't even the same size anymore, so I was starting over in every aspect of my life. My first day home, my mom took me to get my outpatient therapy started. I came home with lots of medicine, and some had to be picked up when we got back. I was so happy to see my siblings. I think it had been a year since I saw them, but I didn't know that at the time. I didn't know that at the time because of my brain injury. With my memory being gone, it would soon become something working against me without the knowledge of why. My daughter's mom comes over and tells me I have a game called the PS3. I was excited because I could only remember the PS2. She said I had put it in the pawn shop right before we got in the car in the accident. She took me to go get it so I would have something to do. Playing my game was a blessing in disguise because it was therapeutic for my right arm. I had spasticity in the inside of my elbow. Spasticity is like a Charlie horse that never ends. The symptoms include painful, stiff, rigid muscles, involuntary contractions or muscle spasms, and overactive reflexes. Arm spasticity usually occurs due to nerve damage, when, which was a result of my brain and spinal injury. When I was in rehab, they had to give me a shot in my arm to relax my muscles. Then they forced my arm to stretch out and put a cast on it while they held it down. I had to wear this cast for several weeks. This is why I had to relearn how to write, and playing my game started making the muscles in my forearm, hand, and wrist stronger. I started playing this game called the God of War, and whenever I got to parts of the game where I had to press a button really fast, I would hand the controller to whoever was around because I wasn't capable yet. Most of the time I would try though. So my mom eventually came upstairs to ask me was I hungry, and I told her no. She made me eat anyway. I started thinking back to when I finally graduated to solid foods at the center. I watched the nurse remove the feeding tube out of my stomach. I found out I could order whatever I wanted and I would do just that. They came to me every morning to get my order for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I think when they cut my stomach open and closed it back up, it shrunk in size because I would take one bite of something and I was full. I did that same thing with my mom. She told my dad, and I began getting in trouble for not eating. I think I was around maybe 110 pounds at the time. Everybody wanted me to get my weight up, so I began forcing myself to eat eventually to expand my stomach. The next day, I went to see a neurologist. One of the medicines I came home with, I took to keep me from having seizures. I think the potential seizures were related to my brain injury and the fact that they drilled a hole in my skull to relieve pressure. These were the reasons I went to see a neurologist, but the main reason was my persistent migraines that were horrific. The doctor was Korean or Chinese. He had a very distinct accent. I got the feeling that I wasn't going to develop a good relationship with him. When me and my mom got home, my daughter and her mom came over. We were upstairs in the room, and every time I looked at my daughter, I was so proud. She started to tell me how stressed out she was and how she needed help with my daughter. Because she was my girl and we had a daughter together, I felt obligated. So I told her I could watch my own daughter. This caused a ricochet of responses from my family in the very near future. She also brought to my attention what the doctors gave her when we first got in the car accident, and she was the only because she was the only person at the hospital. They gave her some paper to sign me up for disability, just in case I survived the accident. Eventually, she gave them to my mom, so it was believed that my mom was getting a check from me. I still can't retain information that long, so it was like she never told me this. So I never asked or bring it up. Eventually, she leaves and goes to work. This kind of upsets my family because I couldn't even take care of myself. But I didn't understand that at the time because I didn't have the mental capacity to. All I knew was I had a daughter that needed me. She then goes to work, and of course, my daughter was being handled by my family mostly. I still couldn't even walk that good, and I used the walls in the house to get around because I was determined not to use my walker or wheelchair. I spent most of my time upstairs playing my game. When I would play my game, I started having flashbacks of different scenes. The scenes would be too short to form any type of knowledge about them at that time. I think playing the game and the coordination of my mind pressing the correct button started to strengthen my thought process. I was starting to be able to filter through my thoughts and choose. Disability was not that strong yet, but it would get there. I think my mom expressed concerns about me watching my daughter when she got off work. They felt like she was taking advantage of me. I got I got back like $5,000 to $6,000 in income taxes that year, and my daughter's mom was the one that filed my taxes. I didn't even know what income taxes was and why they were important to me at the time. The car we got into an accident with was her car, so with my income taxes, she went to a car auction and got another one. I slowly started to feel hate from my family, and the next day I found out why. It took me years to finally figure out that my dad, my mom, my twin brother, and my sister Tanisha had and or was passing around these distorted views of me. I haven't seen or spent quality time with my family in a year, but somehow they knew my story better than me. Their version remained strong and true because all I had was faint and partial flashbacks. Even if I expressed truth, the response I got back for an entire year was, "You don't know what you're talking about. You lost your memory, remember?" This was true. This was so true, and I couldn't combat it. This and the horrible person I learned I was when I was in rehab is a combination that paralyzed me more than my accident. I was already at my lowest, and it seemed they wanted me lower. So I accepted abuse. My spirit rebelled against this, but over time, I was conditioned not to trust myself starting the next day. Sometime during the day, I was in the kitchen and my sister Tanisha comes in upset with me about how I did my twin brother. I have no idea what she is talking about, but something in me was telling me that her story was incorrect. Somehow we get into a physical altercation. I was in physical pain, but my emotional and mental pain was so much greater. My mom watched all of this. At the time, my sister was bigger and stronger than me. I was told everybody was crying at the hospital and everyone stayed overnight and slept on the floor. Now I'm asking myself, was it all an act until I got home? My family was doing more damage than the actual car accident. My mom's argument was I needed to focus on my healing and I wasn't in a position to be a father right now. But they were preventing me from doing that or from healing. I felt like I was in a nightmare and it became just that the next day. Remember, I struggled to retain information, so most days were like me starting over. My twin brother comes over to see me and we are upstairs talking. Whatever we was talking about made me recollect a conversation I had with my daughter's mom about her struggling my income taxes and a check that my mom was supposedly getting from me. Because of my kid-like nature, I didn't see anything wrong with me telling him what my daughter's mom was telling me. She thought my mom was getting money that belonged to me. Eventually, my brother goes downstairs. I'm playing my game. I've already forgotten about the conversation me and my brother had. Then I start to hear commotion going on downstairs. I'm in my own bubble. Then my mom comes upstairs cursing at me and calling my daughter's mom all kinds of names. Remember that overwhelming feeling I kept getting the day before I got discharged from the rehab center? It was coming true. I became a runner again, but this time I had a bunch of injuries. My mom kicked me out, and my dad was on his way to get me, so I started packing my things in bags.